There's never been anyone quite like Yogi Berra. Not in baseball, not in sports, not in American culture. He was 5 feet 8 inches, stocky. He didn't look like an MVP, didn't sound like one. And if you only read the quotes, it ain't over till it's over. 90% of baseball is mental, the other half is physical. You might think he was more mascot than myth. But behind the grin, behind the quirks, was one of the most quietly dominant players the game has ever seen. A man who won 10 World Series rings, more than anyone in Major League history. A man who caught a perfect game in the World Series. And a man who, for almost a decade, might have been the most valuable player in baseball. So, how good was Yogi Berra, actually? Lawrence Peter Yogi Berra was born in St. Louis, Missouri, to Italian immigrants. He dropped out of school in the 8th grade to help his family, and like countless kids from the Hill neighborhood, he played baseball in empty lots. He wasn't supposed to be here. The Cardinals passed on him, the Yankees didn't. He signed for $500 and a train ticket, then got drafted to World War II. Yogi was a gunner's mate at D-Day. He fired from a rocket boat off Omaha Beach, one of the deadliest mornings in modern history. Then came home and somehow picked up right where he left off, behind the plate. By 1947, he was on the Yankees. A young, squat catcher with an unorthodox swing, a quick smile, and a knack for barreling everything. Nobody thought he'd be the face of a dynasty. The Yankees were stacked: DiMaggio, Rizzuto, Henrik, but the kid from the Hill wouldn't go away. By 1949, he was the starting catcher on the most famous team in baseball. That year, he hit .277 with 20 homers and 91 RBIs. A year later, .322, 28 homers, 124 RBIs, and a third-place MVP finish. Then, in 1951, Yogi Berra became the American League MVP. From 1950 to 1956, his prime years, he wasn't just consistent. He was machine-like. Batting averages between .272 and .322, 20 to 30 home runs, 90-plus RBIs every single season. And he did it all while catching over 100 games per year, in heavy wool uniforms, in the pre-modern medicine era. For a catcher, that's absurd. It's like a running back leading the league in rushing and never missing a snap. Yogi's statistical prime is deceptive because it's not flashy. No 50 home run seasons, no towering OPS marks like Mantle or Williams, but relative to his peers, and especially to other catchers, it's all-time stuff. From 1949 through 1958, his average slash line was .295/.365/.500, with 25 homers and 100 RBIs a year. Over that span, he finished top 4 in MVP voting 7 straight times, winning 3 of them. No other catcher in history has a run quite like that. His OPS plus, adjusted for park and era, was 125, meaning he hit 25% better than the league average hitter. But remember, that's while catching full-time, managing a pitching staff, blocking 90-mile-per-hour fastballs without modern gear. His WAR, wins above replacement, averaged 5.5 per year through the 1950s. For a catcher, that's like posting a 7-WAR season as a shortstop every year for a decade. And then there's the winning. The Yankees from 1949 to 1958 were the stuff of legend. 10 pennants in 10 years, 7 championships. And in the middle of it all was Yogi Berra, calling pitches, driving in runs, never getting hurt. Ask fans who lived through it, and they'll tell you. Yogi Berra wasn't just a player, he was the pulse of the Yankees. He was short, funny, and unpolished in interviews. But on the field, deadly serious. He'd squat behind the plate for 3 hours, then jump up and throw lasers to second. He rarely struck out, and he rarely took a walk, but he always hit. His contact rate was unreal. In 1950, he had 597 plate appearances and only 12 strikeouts. 12. He once swung at a pitch that bounced and lined it into right for a single. Teammates called it Berra ball, the art of hitting bad pitches well. And of course, the moment that sealed his legend. October 8, 1956. Don Larson's perfect game. 27 up, 27 down. The final strike. Larson throws. Strike 3. Berra leaps into his arms. That photograph, frozen forever, might be the most iconic image in baseball history. You could make that argument, and people have. He had Mantle, DiMaggio, and later Maris around him. The Yankees were a juggernaut, but that ignores one crucial point. Yogi was the constant. From 1949 to 1955, he led the team in RBIs every single year. He played more games than anyone else on the roster. Because they needed him. Catcher is baseball's hardest position. You squat 150 times a night, take foul tips off your hands, mask, knees. Most catchers fade by age 30. Yogi was an all-star at 37. And when you compare him to his peers, the dominance becomes clear. The second-best catcher of the 1950s, Roy Campanella, had similar peaks, but nowhere near the same consistency or longevity. Campanella's career WAR, 41.8. Yogi's, 59.5. That's a massive gap, especially considering the era. By JAWS, the Hall of Fame metric combining career and peak value, Yogi ranks 5th all-time among catchers, right behind Bench, Carter, Piazza, and Rodriguez, every one of them from a more modern age. So no, he wasn't just along for the ride. He was the engine. Catching destroys bodies. Berra's knees were shot by the early 60s. His bat slowed down. His legs ached. But even then, he adjusted, playing outfield, mentoring young catchers, guiding the next Yankee wave. He wasn't chasing numbers. He was chasing wins. And even when his playing days ended, his baseball brain stayed sharp. He became a coach, then a manager, leading both the Yankees and the Mets to the World Series, one of the few people ever to do it for both New York teams. In 1962, at age 37, he caught a 22-inning game, 7 hours behind the plate, still throwing runners out, still smiling. That year, he hit .271 with 14 home runs and 64 RBIs. Not MVP level, but still productive for a man who'd been squatting since the Truman administration. In 1963, he played his final full season, and then stepped aside. By the time he retired, his stat sheet read like folklore: 358 home runs, 1,430 RBIs, 10 World Series rings, 3 MVPs. No one has matched that blend of hardware and heart. Yogi Berra wasn't just a catcher. He was baseball's philosopher-poet, a bridge between eras, and a winner at the highest level. He was the heart of the 1950s Yankees, their field general, their voice, their constant. He caught 173 shutouts, more than any catcher in history at the time. He appeared in 21 World Series as player, coach, or manager. He's one of only 7 players in history with 3 MVPs, and somehow he managed to transcend the game entirely. His quotes, his grin, his charm, they made him immortal. Baseball is 90% mental. The other half is physical. That wasn't a mistake. That was Yogi, saying something absurd that turned out to be true. So, how good was Yogi Berra, actually? Yogi Berra wasn't just a funny man with a glove. He was elite, a generational catcher who combined power, contact, and durability like almost no one else. He was one of the 10 greatest catchers of all time, and arguably the single most valuable to his team's success. In an era of legends, Mantle, Mays, Williams, Berra's steady greatness made him the cornerstone of baseball's greatest dynasty. When you strip away the humor, the quotes, and the mythology, what's left is one of the toughest, smartest, most productive players the sport has ever known. So when people ask, how good was Yogi Berra actually? The answer is simple. He was a legend in plain sight, a Hall of Famer by the numbers, a champion by nature, and proof that greatness doesn't always look the way you expect it to.